IELTS speaking question types for part 3 of your IELTS speaking test. I've been an examiner for over 10 years, and during this time I've realised that there are 8 common types of questions that get asked in part 3 of your IELTS speaking test. I'm going to teach you what these question types are so that you can be prepared for them, so that you can be well prepared for your test and get a higher score. Now, it's much easier to prepare for these 8 question types than it is to try and prepare for all the different topics that you hear about in the speaking test. Now, this is because there are over 200 different topics or questions in the test at any one time, and it's impossible to be well prepared for all of them. And they keep changing, so you just can't keep up with all this change. However, these 8 question types cover over 80% of the questions that get asked in your IELTS speaking test. So if you're prepared well for these question types, you'll be well prepared to take your test. These are the 8 most common questions in part 3 of the test. You'll see these in more detail later on, but let's just quickly run through them. 1. Different kinds of. 2. Comparing. 3. Predicting. 4. Advantages. 5. Disadvantages. 6. Solutions. 7. Reasons. 8. Opinion. To answer questions in part 3 of the IELTS speaking test, we can use a structure that resembles a burger. We can think of the buns as being an introduction and summary or conclusion to our answer. Then we have our main ideas represented by the meat, cheese, tomato and lettuce. Let's look at these each in a bit more detail. First, we can introduce our answer. We can do this by paraphrasing the question. Then we can move on to our first main point and develop this point. Then we can introduce our second main point and develop that. We could even introduce a third main idea. Finally, we might want to summarize our answer. Let's look at a sample question so we can see how to apply our burger to real questions. We're starting with our first question type, which asks about different kinds of. This is often the first question in your part 3. The question is, what are some different kinds of places to go shopping? We can start with an introduction that paraphrases key words from our question. Well, there are a wide range of places to go shopping. Then we can introduce our first type and develop it. One of the most popular types is department stores. I think this is because they stock high quality products and always offer a money-back warranty if you're unsatisfied with your purchase. Then we can introduce our second idea and develop that. Another trendy place that people in my country enjoy shopping is at night markets. I guess this might be because it's a lot of fun and the prices are usually cheaper than in the stores. Now we can summarize or conclude our answer. So, department stores and night markets are the most common. You'll notice that some of the wording is highlighted in bold. This is structural language that you can use for other similar questions that are asking about different kinds of. Let's imagine that the question is asking about different kinds of places where we can go to relax. We can use that same language and then just change the development a bit. We could start with an introduction like, well, there are a wide range of places where people can relax. Then we could introduce the most popular type. One of the most popular types is cinemas. Or we could still keep it department stores if we wanted. So you can use this language that's placed in bold to build your own model answers to questions asking this function about different kinds of. Let's move on to the second question type about comparing or making comparisons between two things. The question is, what are the differences between what men and women shop for? In answering this, I'm going to give an introduction, a main idea, a second idea, then I'm going to finish. I'm not giving a summary for this question. You don't need to give a summary for every question. I feel my answer is long enough without it, so I'm going to stop after I've developed my second idea. Again, you'll notice that some of the words are in bold. This is the structural language that you can use for any question asking you to compare two things. We start with an introduction that paraphrases keywords from the question. Well, obviously, there are a number of clear differences. Then we move on to the first main idea. Perhaps the most significant one would be that men tend to be more interested in shopping for electronic gadgets, whereas women have a preference to shop for makeup and clothes. Then we move on to our second idea. In addition, a subsequent contrast could be that women like to shop in expensive malls, while men prefer to shop in small retail shops. Our third question type, predicting or the future. The question is, will shopping be different in the future? We start with our introduction. It is difficult to predict the future, but I think there are going to be some major changes with regard to shopping. Note that sentence. That sentence could be used to answer any question about the future. If you can memorize phrases like this, it will make it easier for you to answer questions. This is because your brain won't have to think so hard. You'll have most of the sentence already. You've only got to complete the end of the sentence with the question-specific words, which in this case is shopping. Then we move on to our first main idea. I'm not exactly sure what will happen, but one possibility is the popularity of shopping online may lead to people only shopping from their apartments. Then we move on to our second point. This second point is a little less likely to happen, so we use some slightly different language for this one. Furthermore, this might sound a bit crazy, but I think one day we may even have robots who can go out and buy the things we need. Our next question type asks about advantages of something. The question is, what are the advantages of shopping online? We start with a sentence that introduces advantages. Clearly, there are a number of obvious merits. Then we introduce our first one. But I would probably say that the one thing that really stands out is that it is convenient. This is obviously favourable because we all lead such busy lives. I just want to point out here too that stands out is an idiomatic phrase. So part of this phrase that you can memorize for this type of questions involves an idiomatic expression, stands out. Then if we look back at our introduction, note the way advantages has been rephrased into merits. So by learning some of these answers, it'll help your fluency, and it'll also help your score for vocabulary because you're showing the ability to rephrase advantages to merits, and you're also using an idiomatic expression, stands out. Let's look at our second point. Besides this, a second positive point could be that we can save money. This is because the prices of e-commerce sites are cheaper than physical stores. If the examiner asks you a question about advantages, it's very likely that the next question will ask you about disadvantages. Our question is, what are the disadvantages of shopping online? We start by introducing our answer. For sure, there are some drawbacks. Point 1. I suppose the most difficult aspect might be that we can't see the actual products we are purchasing. And this can be irritating because sometimes the products don't meet our expectations. For instance, shoes might not fit. Second idea. At the same time, another stumbling block with shopping online is that it is not always safe. The issue is that sometimes a company might take our money and not deliver us the right products. And note we've got another idiomatic expression embedded in here, stumbling block. A stumbling block is like an obstacle or a barrier, something that prevents something. So while we're learning language that we can use for any question about disadvantages, we're also injecting some high-level language into our answer. The next question type, solutions, requires you to give solutions to a problem or a disadvantage. The question is, how can we make shopping online safer? Note in the introduction how I use the word tackle instead of solve. Tackle is an idiomatic expression. Let's see our answer. I believe there are a few ways to tackle this problem. Perhaps the most effective solution is for governments to regulate online retailers. Consequently, only reputable and reliable companies will be able to sell online. In addition, if schools were to educate young people about the need for caution when shopping, it would result in an increased awareness of the need to be careful when shopping online. Therefore, solving this issue requires action from the government and the education system. Note how there's a summary or concluding statement for this answer. The next question type asks you about reasons. The question is, why do people shop online? In answering this question, I have only used one main idea. It could be that you'll only have one idea for some questions. In this case, it's a good idea to include an introduction and a summary. This will help to make your answer a bit longer. Let's see the answer to this question. Well, I think the main factor to account for this is the convenience. You know, you can just serve from the comfort of your home and then the goods get delivered to your home. You can shop without even leaving your home. Thus, I believe it's because it's so convenient. Opinion questions are also extremely common in your IELTS test. Let's look at the question. Do you think most people enjoy shopping? The structure of my answer is to start by clearly stating my opinion. Then I give the main reason for it, another reason for it, and then I have a concession or a contradictory statement. You may not need to do this in your test, but I just want to show you how to do it in case you do. Finally, I end with a concluding statement. Let's take a closer look at my answer. Yes, I do. The main reason is because it is exciting to see new products and gadgets in the store. As well as this, it is often a social activity that we do with our friends. However, in some cases, it can be unpleasant. For instance, if it is too crowded and noisy in the place that you are shopping. Therefore, it seems to me that it is usually a pleasurable experience. To summarize this presentation, there are 8 main types of questions that you should prepare for in Part 3 of the test. They are different kinds of, comparing, predicting, advantages, disadvantages, solutions, reasons, and opinions. You may not get all of these types of questions on your test, but you should be prepared. You can prepare for these types of questions by reviewing my model answers. Take note of the language that's in bold, because that language can be used for lots of different types of questions. When answering questions, we can use our burger structure to answer these questions. We have different elements that we're going to use, and we may not use all of these elements for each question. The elements are to introduce your answer, to give a main point, to give a second and possibly third main point, and then finally we might summarize our answer or give some kind of concluding statement. If you found this video useful, please subscribe to me so that you can see other videos that I'm releasing. Also, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you links to some other similar videos. I'm going to give you a link to Part 1 of the speaking test and the different question types, and Part 2 of the test and the 5 different question types. Remember, study smarter, not harder.